Hello, it's Kathryn here, and welcome back to Mission Imperfect. Before this week's episode, I just wanted to let you know that on Wednesday, the 14th of January at 1 p.m. UK time, I'm hosting a free workshop, Reset and Refocus for 2026, beyond New Year's resolutions. So, no more overwhelming or unobtainable resolutions that vanish by February, but yes, to helpful, meaningful, and personal reflecting, reconnecting, refocusing, and resetting. I'll pop the sign up link in today's show notes. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about navigating the twists and turns of life and embracing the imperfections of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches Kathryn and Kirsty, and our mission is to support you in finding your own path, your own way, with greater clarity and self trust, no matter how messy or uncertain things may seem.
We address the roadblocks that come up time and time again for our coaching clients, from acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
As well as asking lots of questions, a coach's favourite thing to do, we'll be sharing thoughts and insights and offering plenty of tips, tools, and techniques for you to try.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello and welcome back to Mission Imperfect. It's a new year, it's a new series, and it's a slightly new look. Or should that be sound? Or both, possibly, who knows? This is Mission Imperfect updated.
Yes, quite how different it's going to be perhaps remains to be seen because we thought we would like to do things a little bit differently this year. And we're still going to be talking about coaching topics, but we thought we'll also try and introduce some smaller bite size sort of coaching tools, tips and techniques episodes interspersed amongst them. And we would try to be perhaps a little bit more concise, but we shall see, because sometimes when we get going on a subject, that's not quite how it pans out.
Yeah,
But
no promises.
no promises, no. But we do like to practice what we preach here. So, as life coaches, it wouldn't feel very authentic if we didn't do that. So we have had a break over December, and now we are back. And really, so we're going to talk a bit about pausing today. Now we have spoken about that before, but it just felt very topical for us right now, and our own pause in producing this podcast just kind of felt necessary, needed, and was probably a wise move for us to do that. Life is
Yeah,
busy, not always smooth sailing. And okay, maybe we didn't necessarily intend to have one necessarily, but we were aware that any reluctance or guilt about pausing was really of our own making. So,
mhm.
yes, we had to tell the should word to get in the bin, didn't we, Kirsty? Like, should we
Yeah,
keep going and all those
we
sorts of things.
we shouldn't take a break. We should keep going at one a week.
Yeah,
All those sneaky shoulds that start to creep in and the catastrophizing you do about what will happen if you don't do all those shoulds.
exactly. And we actually thought, do you know what, pausing instead, it's giving us a chance to sort of do a quick reassess. Hence why we've come up with what we think will be a slightly different look and feel this year, but we shall see how that goes. That's the good thing about being called Mission Imperfect, isn't it? I don't think we realised that at the time, that we can just claim anything is in keeping with our title because it's imperfect.
Absolutely. Covers everything,
Genius.
right?
Exactly, exactly. But yes, we thought rather than just push through, we would practice what we preach. We did a pause. So, yes, whilst we did in fact do an episode about this way back in the early days of series one, so that
Mm.
it will be probably about a year ago, we've got a slightly different angle this time. And we're always going to try and give you something to take away from each episode. And like I said, sometimes we're going to try and follow that up by giving you a tips and techniques or tools or something about that topic in a different episode. It's in a sort of bite-size format, and we are going to do that for this topic. So keep tuned for that one coming soon. So let's talk a little bit about pausing, because sometimes it's easier said than done, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is because you get so caught up in everything that's going on in your head, everything that's going on in your life, all the pressure you feel from outside to be doing things, to say yes to things. It can be very hard to just take your foot off the brake, step out of the rat race, get off that hamster wheel, however you like to put
Yeah.
it.
There's lots
It's
of images that go with it. That I was thinking of the hamster on the wheel, poor thing, like running and running to keep up, and then it ends up being just spun around like a little thing in a tumble dryer.
oh, poor
Life
thing.
can feel a bit like that, can't it?
Yes, it's quite rodenty though, the imagery, isn't it? Rat race and hamster wheel
But
and
yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll have
I've
to think
never
of,
heard that
is there a
before.
sloth? I don't know. Anyway,
But we always like to introduce a sloth. Yes, be more sloth.
sloth and biscuits. That probably will be continuing themes in our episodes. But
Some things we don't need to change.
exactly. But also, in a way, what better time to be talking about something like a pause than January? Because it's the month where perhaps we're under a little bit of pressure to commit and stick to resolutions and goals. Obviously, we have thoughts about New Year's resolutions, which we have covered before, and we can link to that in the show notes in case you didn't catch that one. But they do often get cast off by spring,
Doesn't take that
and
long for a lot of us.
yeah, they're tricky. They are tricky. And as we mentioned at the start, that pause gives you a chance to stop from rushing in, give you
Mm.
space to reflect on what it is you really want. And I think we said this before, it can actually get you there faster. That's the irony. You think pause means I've slowed, I've stopped, I'm not doing something, not making progress. But perhaps when you do move, you're going to make the right kind of progress rather than just any old progress.
Yes, going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Going round and round in circles really constitutes progress. Although in my case, this is often what happens when I attempt to navigate anywhere, however much I pause. But that is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that pause, it isn't about sort of nothing happening. A pause is where you create space for emotions to settle and for the subconscious to become conscious. And from that, our responses and decisions start to come from a more grounded, a more aware place, don't they? Whether
Yeah.
that's in action or communication.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, it's encouraged, isn't it, to look before you leap, and rather than just,
Usually, yes.
launch yourself in. And I like this little, I was going to say trio, but it's
Phrase.
not a trio. There's a quad. I don't even know what the word of it is of ours. It's a chance to rest, review, regroup, and re-energize. So I like those
Oh,
R's because I can. I was going to say I can always remember them, but to be honest, that's may not be likely. But and then you make a decision from that place where, and that can be I'm going to carry on, or I'm going to do something different, or I'm going to stop altogether. You can make that, like you said, that more sort of grounded decision, and it can help us break unwanted habits and establish new ones. It's not just new things.
yeah. I mean, I think that's an important point to emphasize is that it's not necessarily about changing what you're doing. It's about the word you've already used about assessing what we're doing, reviewing to use an R, so that you can be clear in your own mind about whether it does feel like the right thing for you and whether you are approaching it in the best way. If you have a pause and the answer to those questions come up, yes, great. Yeah, you
Yeah.
off you go again. You have regrouped, you have re-energized, and off you go in the right direction. That right direction, another R for you. But on the other hand, it can also give you space to recognize another R. I promise not to identify every word beginning with R for the rest of the episode, but the pause can also give you the space to recognize where things don't feel right, where you are just being sort of rushed into something, or you've got carried away with it, or you're feeling under pressure to do it. As can often be the case with, well, it is an R word. I had to recognize that one. Resolutions. The whole thing about New Year's resolutions and what do you want for this year and what's going to be your goal, what's going to be your word of the year, how's this year going to be different? All those conversations can be really useful, but they can also put you under a lot of pressure to come up with something, anything. Whereas if you can take that pause, maybe you'll come up with something that's going to work for you.
Yeah. And that matters, let's be honest, rather
Yes.
than something
Yeah.
arbitrarily. So signs, so you might be thinking, okay, this is all well and good. I kind of get what you're saying, but how might I decide if a pause is necessary? Because obviously we can't spend our whole lives on pause. There is the doing
Tempting
as
as it
well.
is. Yeah.
Yes, I know that's going back into sloth mode, isn't it? But there might be some telltale signs that a pause might be required. So it could be perhaps physically, emotionally, or mentally. So what I mean by that, say for example, physically, whether you know perhaps frequent illness is popping up, fatigue,
Mm.
feeling run down. It could be those could be examples that a pause might be needed. Emotionally, it might be, things like mood swings or apathy, withdrawal, overwhelm, or irritation. I mean, this is that describing my day? I don't know.
Your normal day, is it? Maybe you need to pause, Kathryn.
Yes,
Just
yes, I think so now.
saying.
I'm
Yeah.
I'd like to think not, but I think we could probably identify it's more if that's becoming, I guess, a bit of a pattern that you're noticing.
Yes. Or
It
higher
might be a
levels of
sign.
it, greater frequency.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. And then sort of mentally, whether, perhaps you have some difficulty concentrating, decision fatigue, or you're rushing, the opposite. And now we're not saying
Mm.
that these are all definite indicators. It's not like kind of like a diagnosis or anything like that. They're just possible little signs that, hang on a minute, what am I doing? Take a
Yeah.
moment before I carry on. That's all we're suggesting. We're not always saying a pause has to be this almighty, right, that's I'm not doing anything for the rest of the week
It
until
can be if you want it to be. Yeah.
yeah, but it can be less than that. So pausing can look different a number of different ways, can't it? It can be anything from,
Yes.
as much as I might want to sort of hibernate or disappear to a spa for, many
Oh,
days and not resurface. But I know you look very longing about that idea, Kirsty. No mobile phones,
oh,
distractions. Be nice, wouldn't it?
you've just sent me off to a completely different place in my head now.
Yeah.
Carry on with this on your own. I'll be back in a while.
But it can be just small pauses, even in your day. When you feel like pressured into making a
Mm.
decision and you think, I know, I just need a moment to think about this. So it could be an active pause, a mindful pause, a creative pause, things like
Yeah.
walking around the block, or the phrase I'll sleep on it. Apparently it's because
Mm.
your brain does an awful lot of processing by itself whilst you're sleeping. That's why the phrase sleep on it exists, because you will probably have processed some of that thinking
Yeah.
without you even realizing overnight,
The
if you're able to do
subconscious
that.
is doing its thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or a creative one, you actually sort of change your focus to a creative hobby or baking or something that you want to just enjoy doing. So you're not sort of, sometimes when you stare directly at a problem, it's very hard to see the answer. It's a bit like staring at the
Yeah.
sun. You're not supposed to do that. See around the edges when
These
you
people
have
do
that.
not go stare at the sun.
No, no, absolutely don't do that. Or maybe an environmental or social pause, like a social media break, or
Mm.
visiting a sort of quiet but maybe slightly inspiring space like a museum or a gallery or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes
there's
it
a
can be even
number.
smaller than that, can't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
I mean, I think that idea of a different environment is a really important one for pausing, but sometimes it can be simply changing seats, moving to a different room,
Yeah, yeah,
or taking a comfort break. I mean, I hope I'm not the only one here, but so many times at work when I'm trying to work out a technical problem or whatever, I will have been sat at my desk staring at the screen for hours. Then I get up and go to the loo, and the answer comes to me.
yeah. Also, apparently, the shower is a good place where ideas come. There's something about
Mm.
the water, apparently, that helps with your thinking. But the
Mm.
idea is, no matter what you choose, and you might try a variety of things, it's just a deliberate, intentional pause, for want of a better word, and then we return to what's on your mind or on your plate. Sometimes the answer will have come to you during that pause.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this a bit more, I think, won't we, Kirsty, in our tips, tools, and techniques bite-sized episode to follow.
A
But
few
we
more
just wanted to
tips,
talk
tools,
a
and
bit.
techniques, in fact, we will provide. Yes, on pausing.
Exactly, exactly. But we just wanted to maybe just bust a couple of myths around pausing, because it's not lazy or indulgent or procrastinating for no good reason. Sometimes we know when we're doing those things instead
Yeah.
of pausing. But as we mentioned before, you might actually get to a better matching destination faster by having that pause. And you've got a really good example of this, Kirsty, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of improving the quality of decision making and sort of breaking a pattern, when we started talking about the pause and wanting to do another episode on it, I was listening to the audiobook of Revenge of the Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about a triplet, bear with me here. He talks about a triplicate prescription requirement that was introduced in the US back in the 1930s by a guy called Paul Madden, who was director of something called the California Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, grand title.
Mm.
Um, but this got taken up by a number of states called the Madden states, and whenever they were prescribing opioids, prescription opioids, they had to use this triplicate pad, and they had to file different copies in different places, including with the authorities, where they would be kept for some time, so the authorities could spot patterns and abuse going on within the system. And now, when the kind of prescription opioid crisis hit the US, I think it was primarily in the 1990s, what was really noticeable was in the so-called Madden states, the ones who had kept this triplicate prescription requirement, it was far less severe. The amount of opioids being prescribed per capita in the Madden states were significantly lower, even if the states were next to each other. You know, one was a Madden state and its neighbour wasn't. You might think that they would have more in common than
Yeah.
not, being so geographically close, but there were huge discrepancies with the non-Madden states prescribing far higher levels. And Malcolm Gladwell suggests that a key thing here is that having to fill out that triplicate pad, having to do the filing, having to consider that those records would be kept and analysed, just made the physicians stop and think. It gave them pause for thought, and a different approach emerged accordingly. And it actually meant that those states did not go down the same route in terms of a drug addiction problem.
Wow.
I think
Do you know,
that's
I'd never heard
remarkable.
of that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I'd never heard of these Madden states before you shared that with me. And isn't that interesting? It almost like they force them to slow down so much by doing this triplicate approach. It's like, do I kind of want my name to this? Because it's more than that quickly signing a piece of paper and handing it over, job done, get out my office type situation.
But
It's
the easy answer or the easy solution
yeah,
is to do that. You know, it temporarily solves a problem for the patient. It gets the work off your desk. But if you have to think about it in more detail, in longer term, and about the consequences, just administratively, it changed how they behaved.
yeah. So bringing this back to an example that's perhaps more in keeping with what our audience hopefully will be experiencing. But I think that was a really good example. But I think basically what we've demonstrated, we're big fans of pause with purpose because it's our chance to make sense of something, engage our rational brain, work something out before choosing our action.
Yeah.
Because sometimes otherwise we're just acting without really thinking about the why. And coaching session, which won't surprise people to hear us say this, because obviously as coaches we are huge fans of this. It is like hitting the pause button on life for a moment. That's probably one of the best ways I can describe it. And it gives you a chance to sort of see it through new eyes. It's almost like a different perspective. You can look at your life whilst you're still obviously in it. And it's with the support of someone impartial and able to ask you some questions that maybe you won't have thought to do so.
Yes.
Sometimes you might think, that's not that one, not so much. But other times it's like, oh, I didn't see it that way. I haven't thought about it that way. And it just gives you new insights that you didn't have before. So obviously, if you'd like to know more, then please do contact either of us about our coaching services. We have all of our details in the show notes. Um,
A coaching session is the space of a pause, isn't it?
yeah,
That moment to just what are the R's to rest, review, regroup, re-energize with support
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly that.
that objective sense of somebody questioning with curiosity, not with judgment or challenge, but just questioning what it is that you are saying and thinking and what it is you really want and what matters to you and how you're going about that. It can make the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, it really, really can. And it's almost like once you're in a coaching session, I call it a coaching bubble because it's kind of like
Mm.
you're just in that protected space for a moment. And sometimes when you've been asked one of the like a really simple, what seems like a really simple, obvious question, but one you hadn't asked yourself before, when you've got that pause, just to be thinking about that and just be present. And you don't have to come up with the answers straight away. It's sometimes it's planted a seed, and then later on you'll water it, and then later on you'll see something come from it. And it just gives everyone a chance to, well, sort of breathe and have that perspective, which in daily life we don't often get, because it's like I go from this to this to this. We move through things at such rapid pace. I don't know about you, Kirsty, but I often find myself, whilst I'm doing one task, already thinking about, and then I will. You
Yeah,
crack on with the next one, don't you?
it's like a chain, isn't it? It just keeps
Mm.
going. And in that coaching session, when you pause for that time and somebody else listens to you, that opens up your ability to listen to yourself, to hear yourself and what it is you want and how you want to go about getting it or getting to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the
It's
pauses in the coaching as well. It's not just the coaching session is a pause. Pausing is in its own way quite a big part of coaching technique because a coaching conversation isn't like a normal social conversation. It's not about listening to respond. So if you say something to your coach, there may well be a pause at the end. It may well be because the coach is giving you space to see what else is going to come up. It may well be because the coach is pausing to allow what you've said to settle so that they can process it properly and allow themselves to hit on the right question. Which aspect is it of what you just said that it feels right to investigate further. So it's pauses within pauses.
Yes. I wonder how far we could go with pauses within pauses. So what
Oh, there's a
we
challenge. We
I
won't do
know.
that now.
No, no, we won't do that now. We won't do that now. But
In
yes, you're
fact,
absolutely right. The main thing is, I think, actually, is that you're listening to almost inside rather than outside. And in daily life, we have an awful lot of that external noise, and we don't always hear the internal wisdom. And that's what I think you really get to do in a coaching session. Anyway, as we have always done and will continue to do so for our episodes, we will end with a question to reflect on. Sometimes we will answer it, sometimes we won't. So this one, I think we've already spoken about the pause that we intentionally
yeah.
took. So our question for you all is, where in your life could one intentional pause make the biggest difference right now?
Ooh, juicy one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So I think that's everything we're going to say this week about pausing, but we
Yeah.
will be back very soon with our. We need to work out how we're going to say it. Is it tips, tools, techniques? Is that what we're going to go with the three T's? Is that what we're going to have for
That's
our
what seems to have come
bite
up
size?
again and again when we've
Yeah.
talked about it, isn't it? Tips, tools, and techniques. But we are pausing now to return with a bite size tips, tools, and techniques. Technique. I can't even say it now.
No,
Techniques
it's too long-winded, isn't it?
episode
Yes.
on how to pause. Some practical guidance around making that happen for yourself.
Yeah, indeed. So until then, take care and we will see you all soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect. We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of our episodes, especially if you've had a light bulb moment in answering one of the questions, have benefited from one of the tips, or have a suggestion for an episode topic.
And if these conversations have made you curious about how coaching could help you, please don't hesitate to get in touch with one or both of us to find out more about what we offer. Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.